Hey everybody, Steve Burns here. You'll often see me on my Facebook group, the Photoshop users group. It's one of it's a pretty big one, almost 21,000. It could be larger. I've seen larger. I'm also the president of the San Diego Photoshop users group. It's the largest Adobe sanctioned Photoshop users group in the country. We're about 5,400 members, and they have great presentations. But more on that a little bit later. Now, this image is from Faye Barsh, and she's one of our members. In fact, she helps me, kind of watch over the user group on Facebook. And she posted this image, and I wanted to kind of go over some image editing processes that I think everybody should be using inside their workflow. Now, this is a Adobe Canon RAW file. We know that because I can see the title right down here. It's a .cr2. And one of the problems that I'm seeing is that most photographers or digital artists, when they get a photographic image, always want to work with it in color. My recommendation is that you start getting away from that process. Start working with your imagery as a black and white image from a value-based standpoint. So I'm going to start coming right down here to the bottom, and I'm going to pull away the saturation all the way to 0 or minus 100. This takes out all of the color. Now, why is this important? Because color has become a distraction. In fact, it's become a huge wall between the proper depth and detail that you can actually achieve in your image. And you're going to see something different. I'm going to go ahead and double click the saturation. That's going to automatically set it back to its default 0, so that you can kind of get a little bit before and after, and just kind of keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and set it back to 0. Shadows, midtones, highlights. All right, so our shadow areas are represented by this lower value, or closer to 000. As I mouse over these areas, you can see the RGB values right up in here being about 333, in some cases 77 or 666, and others depending on where I mouse. If I come right up to here, let's go to the mid-tone values right about here, 94. Mid-tone is represented in RGB values something close to 127, and this is quite below. If I come right here, we go, that's something a little closer, 126, 127. That's a good mid-tone right about there. So shadows, mid-tones, and of course our highlights, self-explanatory. Anything that's going to be closer to the 255 range or higher value. So we're dealing with a gradient value in terms of 256 possible shades of gray. All right, so we've got rid of color so that we can actually see the detail, and we're going to produce this as a great looking black and white image. Then later on, bring back the color. Now, the first thing I want to do is this. I'm going to go over my lens correction. And in the lens correction, I want to have some options. I'm going to go over the profile, and I'm going to target remove chromatic aberration. Just always have that checked on. And then the next thing is going to enable the profile corrections. If I target this, it automatically, you saw what happened here, it's corrected itself. Let's go ahead and take it off, before and after, before and after. It saw the type of camera I was using. It saw the lens that Faye was using, and it's looking for the profile for that lens and camera body combination, and made the corrections, because lenses are not perfect. There's always these distortions going on due to the optics, or the shape of the optics, the nature of the optics. So what it's trying to do is compensate for it. All right, now once that's done, just have those always checked on for everything that you do. I'm going to go over here to my basics tab, and the first thing I'm going to deal with is the shadows. I want to have a good rich tone to catapult all my other tones forward to get more of a three-dimensional depth. The problem here is that it's blocked up. These lower values are so blocked up with medium gray that we don't see the detail in here. Let's go ahead and pull in a little closer. We can't see the detail in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to target those shadow areas. So going past the highlights, go to the shadows, midtones, and highlights. I'm going to deal with the shadows first and pull it up like so. You see that? So now we're starting to release the highlights from underneath the shadows. In this case, I have to kind of bring the slider a little bit, over pretty far to the right. Now we hit a Command 0, and I'm going to move the slider back and forth so that you can see that it is only affecting those areas. It's not affecting the sky at all, which is an advantage in this case. All right, so the next thing I would like to do is I want to give some contrast to these lower tonal areas. So in other words, we brought out a lot of the detail by pulling out a lot of that dark tone, but we can still use a little more contrast in here. And I'm going to opt to go down to, instead of the shadows again, the shadows we've maxed out over here, but we can go to the blacks, which is your extreme shadows, the really deep shadows. So I can go to the blacks, I can pull them up higher, or I can pull them down a little lower, so we're getting a little more contrast. So it's not too much I can do. So I'm going to pull them right about there, because we're going to use another technique that we can use. In fact, I tell you what, let's go ahead and reset this one, and let me share with you another technique. It's called dehaze. You're going to find a dehaze under the effects tab. And what dehaze is doing is it's targeting your lower values only and giving them richness and depth. Why does it work that way? Because if you go look at your landscape, whenever there's a haze in the background, well, what value system is being affected? It's your lower shadow areas. It's bringing up your shadows and higher values and not really affecting your highlights at all. So what we want to do is we want to decrease that problem. Go to the effects, and if you look at this visual nomenclature here, pull it to the left, everything gets flatter. And if you pull to the right, we start to pull out, the haze starts to come out. All right, so let me actually go to pull this all forward. You see what's happening here? Even these values in here are getting, it's like it's more contrast. And what we're doing is we're pushing those deeper level values or blacks down. And this image was so flat to begin with. So I'm gonna go right about there. And we're gonna stay there. That looks good there. I'm going to go back to the basics tab. All right, now what can we do next? Now let's go deal with the highlights. We did a fairly effective job. I'm not completely happy with it, but you're going to see the results as overall in just a moment. So we're going to go to the highlights, and we're going to see if we can gain some more detail on the highlights. That is what the highlights are for. We just dealt with the shadows, midtones, highlights. Let's go to highlights, the other extreme areas. And let's bring the highlights down. There we go. See, I can gain more detail or less detail. I'm going to pull it all the way down so I can get as much information as I can up here in the shadows. Now, if we go down, look a little further, you have the whites, which is your extreme whites. Now, if I pull it over, I can get a little more luminosity in some of the extreme areas. So you want to be careful of that. You don't want to get too close. This is about 230, 255 is an absolute white in some of these areas. I've got plenty of detail. I've got a little bit room to move. So with the whites, I'm gonna give a little more pop in there, or I can pull it down to flatten them out. I think it's more attractive when we have some snap. The whole idea is to get some depth. All right, there we are. I think that's going to work nicely. So finally, I'm going to go over here to clarity, which is our mid-tone contrast. Now, so far, we've avoided the mid-tone, right? We dealt with the shadows, then we've dealt with the highlights. Get those two in range the way you need them, then let's go to our mid-tone values. That is our clarity. Pull it down, flattens the mid-tone values out, and even those clouds are kind of interesting. But anyway, let's pull it on over and give it a little more pop. All right, there we go. Now that's giving it some depth there. You want to be careful with clarity because you don't want these little highlights, these little halos around these edges going on, especially between the edges of your landscape and your sky, where the two meet there. And I'm going to share with you how to deal with that in just a little bit. All right, so it's looking pretty good. Now, watch very closely. As a matter of fact, let me zoom in a little closer. All right, how about even yet a little closer? Let's go to the saturation. Now, watch very closely what happens. I'm going to go to the slider, and I'm going to pull it over. And look how much. Look at this. I'm just right about there. It's already looking pretty good. It's pretty green. It's pretty blue. But am I over to zero yet? No. Nowhere near zero yet. So what we've done is we separated the values from the colors completely inside of Adobe Camera Raw. Let's pull it over a little more just for the fun of it. All right, let's go even closer to zero. You see, that's pretty close to zero. Let's go right about there. approximately, it's pretty too much saturation. So, and if you look at it, overall you're getting a much better looking image. The color is separated much more effectively. That's a little too strong. I'm gonna pull this down. So what you've done is now you've reserved more information in your file. The closer to 255 for each of your colors means you have more saturation. But we have less saturation but better contrast. Why? Because we did not touch the color. We only dealt with the values, which gave me some contrast. So now this is looking much, much better. All right, let's get into Photoshop really quick. Let's go open image. It's going to open this up in Photoshop. All right, now once we're here, hitting the F key so I can go to full frame mode here. Once we're here, I want to separate this sky from this landscape in the background, and I'm going to show you why. Let's duplicate the layer, Command or Control J. Let's go over to our channels. I'm going to take a look at my various channels, red, green, and blue. The ideal here, or the concept here, is what's going to separate the sky from the bottom area most effectively. I'm looking at the whole image. Is it going to be the blue channel, the green channel, or the red channel? The red channel gives me too much contrast. That's where your contrast will reside. So I'm going to have a problem making a mask from this. So the goal here is to make a mask utilizing these channels. Give me a clean selection so I can separate the sky from the background. This is the one thing that most of these landscape photographers are not doing. Take your compositional subjects and put them on their own layer so you can apply all types of contrast and lighting controls, and you never ever get the halo around any of your images. Let's go to the green. All right, that's a better separation from the sky. It's a cleaner separation from the sky in the background. But if we go to the blue, ooh, a real clean separation. All right, looking good. Let's duplicate that blue channel. Click and hold on the blue, drop it on the new layer icon. It's duplicated. That is what we're going to actually manipulate. And I'm going to start by hitting the apply image command by using blend modes to blend with the image so that I'm separating the sky from the background. Image menu, apply the image. Now mine went to multiply. It's probably one of the last settings that I've used. And multiply right here. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking this alpha channel called the blue copy, and I'm applying it to itself using a multiply blend mode at 100% opacity, as we can see here. If I go down and target instead overlay, now we're getting a better separation between the highlights and the shadows, because overlay is increasing contrast. The blacks are blacker and the lights are lighter. All right, it's looking better. Okay, now if you can see right getting closer, we're keeping all these little trees down here and all the little nuances of bushes and telephone poles are all being kept. No idea is to push that sky further away. Let's go ahead and apply it again. Apply image and take a look at it again. Now right now I'm seeing that it is making my blacks blacker, but it's also muddying up this mid-tone area up here, which is going to give me problems separating the sky from the bottom section. So let's go to screen, which is going to brighten the whites. Bang, there we go. Now the whites are getting brighter, and it's pulling the brighter areas away from the darker areas. Now I might do it again. All right, let's see what happens if I do it again. I don't get greedy. I'm just going as far as I need to go. Apply image, not bad. A little bit too much. So I'm going to take the opacity down a little bit less, so I can still maintain some value in the darker with the trees and the bushes, and still get those brighter areas away. At this point, all I'm concerned about is what's going on in between the edges of this pole and the background and so forth. Now, to make life easier on me, because it's just kind of using my head here, go get my rectangular marquee tool and select that whole top section there. I'm gonna go back up a little further. That's a little bit too much, so I'll start at the lower section and fill that with black. I'm hitting the Command or Control backspace, which fills with the background color, and Option or Alt backspace fills with the foreground color. Okay, so there, I've got the bottom section dealt with. Command 0, or just about anyway, because I can always come in here and go to my lasso tool and lasso this out, coming all the way across. Or better yet, here. Let's go over to my polygonal lasso tool. Pull it back, click and release, pull it across. That just makes life so much easier. I probably should have done this from the very beginning, but that's okay. Let's do it again. I'm going to pull that down and bring it across. There we are. And that way I'm clicking and releasing, closing, and then what? I'm going to fill with the background. There we are, done. Let's go to the foreground color. Now this is the part that gets fun. I want to pull away that detail, the highlights from the shadows. Hit the B key for my brush, okay? I'm going to right click on the desktop to get my brush palette, go to my soft edge brush that's using my Wacom tablet pressure sensitivity, and then the next thing I'm going to do is come up here to my options and target overlay for my brush mode, blend mode for the brush. What that would do is if I'm paint with white, it'll only affect the whites and make them brighter. If I paint with black and hit the X key for black, it'll only make these areas darker down here. So hit X key again. I'm bringing it across real quick. Okay, see that? Now I hit the X key again, make the brush a little smaller, and there we are. I can bring back my trees, any of the telephones in there, telephone poles, if you so want them. Hit the X key again, pull it away again. So I'm going back and forth, trying to do the best job that I can. I'm making it real fast. It's not a slow process. All right, hit the X key once again, and remember, take that black. It only make that black. Hit the X key again, take away those brighter highlights so it doesn't affect the sign. X key again, the black, make that solid black. X key again, make it white. And all I'm dealing with are these edges. Okay, X key to black. All right, right about there. Get a little stronger highlight. X key to white. X key to black. X key to white. And I'm making it real fast. X key again to black. Pull in some of those areas to white. Okay, that's good enough. All right, hit my L key for my polygonal lasso tool. Go around my sign just a bit. Go around everything else. And go ahead and fill that in with white. Got it. All right, Command D. All right, take it a little close. Get in close. Not bad. Hit my B key for the brush. It's black. So I'll just, darken those up right about there. I might come over here and give it a little more richness right along the edge. Looking good. Not bad. Some of those trees are, keep some of those. Okay. So I'm just kind of assessing it, going across, seeing how far I can really go. And the more you do this, the better you're going to get. Now, all right, here we go. That looks good. All right, so we have our mask. The idea here is to keep the lower half and make the top half go away. So white reveals and black conceals. So Command I, I'm going to flip it. Command click on the mask will give me my selection of everything on here, because the key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections, masks, and channels are exactly the same thing. Now, once we're here, let's go to our layers. Okay? And I'm going to turn off my channel there, turn on all the layer properties and turn off the channel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a mask to this. So, click the mask option, turn off the bottom layer, and this is what I've done. Okay? So there's, if you get in closer, you can see we got a pretty clean selection in here. Keeping a lot of our telephone poles and the tree stubble and all that stuff. Okay, let's pull this on down. Now I want to create another one of these. I'm going to make another layer, Command J, that's duplicated the original. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this mask, hold the Alt Option key, and drag it on top. But this time I want to keep the sky, right? So Command I on the mask. Oops, I did it on the image. So Command Z, target the mask, Command I, and there it is. Now, Let's look at our edge here. Now, if I turn this one off, there is my sky. My sky is sitting on is right on the bottom, and it's below the directly below our landscape area or the bottom area. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn this one on. At this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to if I'm satisfied, if you're satisfied with your masking, right click on the right hand side, make it a smart object. Smart object here. It'll make a lot more sense in just a moment. So it's going to alter into a smart object, and you're only going to see it as if it's one layer. There you go. See what's happening here? Now we don't have to deal with the mask or looking at the mask or any of that stuff. So convert to smart object. I find it often my students find it easier to preview things this way. All right, so when that's done, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Hit my V key for the move tool, go to the sky. See, that sky is going to be underneath here now. Okay, so if I need to nudge it down or something, so that hit the down arrow while I'm in the move tool. See, now that covers it up completely. Let's make sure everything else looks pretty good. A little bit of a problem there, but we're going to use our that's a very easy solution to deal with. And what we're going to do is we just clone this. It's a very fast and easy. Matter of fact, I'll go ahead and do that now really quickly. Make a new layer, hit my S for the stamp tool, and grab some of the sky here, making sure that all layers are selected. Okay, or better yet, current layer and below. Okay, so we're not actually going to be touching the sign. Grab the sky, and I'm going to paint. You can see what's happening. I'm just painting on the new layer above the sky but below the landscape. Okay, and I'm going to go grab some of these skies here and paint it on top, grab some right over here and paint it right in there. Okay, that's fine. So that's really the best way to handle that there. Come and get some skies somewhere else, blend it in, try to make it look as, there we are, we'll grab that there. That looks great. All right, done. All right, so it's completed. Now, why did we do this? Because now I can come over to the sky itself and I can apply say for example, we will apply a curve. So Command M for curves, all right? Or I can go to Image Adjustment Curves there, okay? And it's going to apply it as a smart object. So I can come in here and play with this sky. See? I'm going to get in closer so you can see exactly what's going on. We go to that horizon. You see with no halos around those horizons. You can do with it whatever you want. It'll never affect this edge line because the two are on their own separate layers. This is what landscape photographers and Photoshop practitioners for photographs in general should be. This is the workflow you should have. So you never have an issue with any of these edges and all that stuff. So that I've been seeing in some of the galleries and the competitions. You see this little highlights and a little edge drives me nuts. All right, so I've made a little bit more. There we go. I'm just kind of playing around with this. I'm gonna take this one off. I don't need it. Make it a little more brighter up in here. If I want the lower tones, I want the skies, the bluer areas to be a little bit lower in value. Now, let me share with you another technique, because if I click OK now, what it's going to do is it's going to apply that as a curved smart object. But let me share with you one of my favorites. Let's go ahead and take the curves and trash it. I like to go with the curves adjustment layer, make it a clipping path to the sky, Alt Option, and click it. That means it's only going to affect the sky. Now, when you start applying any type of contrast control tools to your objects, it's going to start to affect your color. Unless you apply that contrast setting as a luminosity blend mode, which means affect only the values. Remember, we're going back to the values again. Affect only the values and not the color. And the way we accomplish that is go to the blend mode from normal, go to luminosity, and you're going to affect more of, now this one we didn't get too much of a drastic change because we were already playing around with the values earlier. But let me see if I make a drastic change here. So luminosity to normal. See, you can see it's very subtle, very, very, very subtle. So what this is going to do is also going to increase the saturation in my color as a result of this move of these higher values going higher. Remember, this is going closer to 255 for red, green, and blue, right? I'm going to make more of a extreme contrast adjustment here. And when you do that, it's going to increase the saturation, unless you come over here and tell it to go luminosity. Watch it closely. It's subtle. You can see it in here. It's very, very subtle. All right, so that's my recommendation. I'm going to pull it down a little bit so it's not too drastic. Now let's go get the grass. I'm looking at my layers. Pull these down so you can see what I'm doing. Put it right above go to the grass one right above it. And we're going to apply an adjustment layer for that. So go to my curves. And let's go manipulate the curves a little bit. Let's go ahead and pull this up. I want to pull this over to the side, make it a little easier for you to see. It's affecting everything, right? Well, let's make it a clipping path. Alt or Option. There. Now it's affecting only the grass. So maybe I want to keep some of these low, bring up the higher values so we're kind of getting a little bit of a highlight along the top feel, like so. Yeah, that's much nicer. And again, I'm going to take that and change it to luminosity. See it there? Now you can see it there. Let's go to normal. Now, because you're saturating the color, you're getting this more of a stronger green. If you go to luminosity, you're going to avoid the color and you're going to deal with more of the lower values. Now, later on, you can come in and add more. Kind of make a decision what works best for you. I do kind of like the normal here. All right, there we go. That's it. That's pretty much, I'm going to go ahead and connect the properties back to the bottom of my layers panel. That's pretty much what I wanted to share with you. Just a real basic, simple workflow that should, that should be part of how you work. So work your imagery in black and white in Adobe Camera Raw. Bring in only enough for the saturation that you feel is going to make your image look great. You're going to immediately find a difference that your image is going to have more depth, more snap, more detail, because you're dealing with the values independent from the color. You only bring enough color to highlight the image, to give your color the saturation that you need, but the values are it's the area that actually gave you the character and the detail and the depth. Okay. All right, that was about it. I know it's kind of a long video there, but I figured I would do everybody a favor, especially for the Facebook group, and give them this little bit of a tip so that if you guys start working your images in this way, you're going to see a lot of improvement. Okay, so I hope to see great work on the Facebook page, great work I've been seeing so far, and I hope to see even better. All right, this is Steve Burns. I'm the one that runs the Photoshop Users Group on Facebook, as well as the San Diego Photoshop Users Group in San Diego, obviously. All right, I'm signing off. Looking forward to sharing with you more.